This is Into the Crypt, a Crypt Walker's field guide to the paranormal. Open the Crypt. Take a walk and explore the unseen world around us.
ITC File 1. Paranormal Research, a History. Every weekend, ghost hunters, para-explorers, and researchers step into the dark carrying handheld thermal cameras, electromagnetic field meters, and digital voice recorders. We walk the remnants of abandoned asylums, prisons, historic homes, hospitals, and creepy basements, all while pointing lasers through the eerie blackness, waiting to see a light blink or a gauge to spike. As investigators, we treat these like precision tools, assuming that modern technology has finally granted us a peek beyond the veil. We do this for a multitude of reasons. Well, for fun, for excitement, for pure human curiosity, and for the overall quest to get the answer to the ultimate question. Is there life after death? For many of us investigators, we feel we have finally gotten somewhere. But where did this journey exactly begin? Who were the founding investigators who came before us? And what is the link between the past and how we continue to investigate today? Welcome to the premiere episode of Into the Crypt, a Crypt Walker's field guide. My name is Ryder, your host, and tonight I am joined by Jamie, a fellow paranormal investigator. Together in this sub-series for this deep dive, we are stripping away the modern ghost hunting tropes, the reality TV drama, and of course the spooky music. This is a very laid-back and non-formal clip. This is a general exploration of the history of paranormal investigating, from the era of where the Industrial Revolution met the occult, and where the best of Cambridge physicists and scientists tried to create a standard of research into all things supernatural. Hey guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Into the Crypt. So I am actually very excited to bring this about. This was because of a listener of our main show, Crypt Walkers. I had a comment. You guys came back and said, hey, there's some things that you guys talk about that, I'm new to paranormal research and I don't really know what you're referring to when you talk about, ghost boxes and things like that. So I figured, hey, I'd come up with this short form sub-series where me and other paranormal investigators or guests can talk about different paranormal topics and the research surrounding it. This is like, exploring different types of equipment, how to investigate in different situations, theories surrounding certain aspects of the paranormal, etc. Anyway, this is supposed to be a little less formal than the main show, and thank God that it is, because it means we can have someone else other than just me talking on the mic. And with that being said, I am happy to introduce Jamie, a really good friend of mine and who is also a paranormal investigator.
Hey, Ryder, thanks for having me. Really cool to be a part of this. I'm a paranormal investigator, like you said, and I've been to quite a few locations. Love trying to figure out what's going on with the paranormal, figure out if we can get deeper answers into, is there really life after death, or how does it all work? And along with that, I'm also a filmmaker, and so I do a lot of video stuff, which goes into the paranormal investigating. I learned a lot of camera work by wandering dark buildings with the night vision camera, so it's a lot of fun.
Yep, and you got a lot of audio stuff too, which is very helpful. Actually, right now, due to a technical glitch, we ended up getting stuck in Jamie's house to record this. But hopefully we'll be back to our regular way of recording. But for right now, yeah, I mean your audio background really came into use. So.
Yeah, the filmmaker in me is like, oh no, we've got to work around that. This is going to be fine. And here we are in my living room. What time is it now? It's like midnight and we're recording this episode.
Yeah,
But,
exactly. And I mean, we've been sitting here talking for what, 3-4 hours, just about different things. I mean, I'm so excited for this particular, like I said, sub-series, because this is where, it's one thing to cover cases, and that's all well and good, but this is where we're going to actually talk about what we love about paranormal investigating, and the different little intricacies surrounding it, So, obviously, with this being a new series, I guess, there is, of course, going to be some housekeeping stuff, but we are going to wait until the end for that. So, instead, let's just go ahead and dive in. Our topic for this month, or tonight, is the overall history of researching the paranormal. So, I know that's a big topic, don't you think?
I mean, where do you even start with that?
I know. Well, I guess we could start in 1848.
Okay.
I know. Isn't that like right on the nose? Like, obviously,
very much.
I mean, come on. Obviously,
where are you getting your information there? Where are you pulling that year?
So, according to a variety of different historical sources, did I just say that?
I blame it on the sleep deprivation at this point.
Okay. According to historical sources, which are all in the show notes, by the way, guys, spiritualism, which is basically the grandparent to paranormal investigating, came about in 1848 with the birth of, like I said, the spiritualism movement. Now, despite my own personal beliefs in the paranormal, we have to look at this history objectively. The foundation of our field was undeniably built on a culture of, dare I say, parlor tricks, stage theatrics, and, well, fraud. I'm just going to say it. I mean, it's part of it. But it was because of this, though, that I believe, and I think you could agree, that we developed better ways to investigate the actual paranormal phenomenon, right?
I mean, the filmmaker in me says it's so easy to fake this stuff, and it's so hard to determine or differentiate between what has been and what hasn't been. So,
yeah, exactly. Really, what it comes down to is building credibility, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, because I do get into that. But to start back in the 1800s, modern spiritualism began as a religious and cultural movement, which literally was tracked down to March 31st, 1848. I don't know how they got that exact date, but it was everywhere I looked. So it was very specific. In Hydesville, New York. So this is an American invention, if that makes sense. When two young sisters, Maggie, age 14 at the time, and Kate Fox, age 11, reported hearing mysterious rapping sounds in their bedroom. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I heard rapping, I thought of like Eminem just suddenly having fun in the corner, but...
go right to the rap music then, huh?
Yeah, but apparently rapping sounds is knocks and bumps and sounds. So what started as a childhood prank was initially using an apple on a string to bump the floor, and it later graduated to cracking their knuckles, toes, and foot joints, basically just to make noise and make it sound like it came out of nowhere. This quickly evolved into a global phenomenon, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, you can imagine it. It was probably in newspapers, and people came out to witness this event. Their mother, Margaret, demonstrated that the quote-unquote spirit could count and answer simple questions like once for yes, twice for no, which soon drew, of course, widespread public curiosity. And following that initial excitement, the sisters were then sent to live with their older sister, Leah, in Rochester, New York. And this was a region that was already known as a hotbed for religious reform. and local community leaders Isaac and Amy Post became intrigued by the family. Leah also began operating as a medium, like she would literally say, I am a medium. And the Posts eventually organized a very public demonstration in Rochester's largest hall, drawing 400 spectators. So you can see how this kind of spread like wildfire. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of people, even for that time, you know. Early spiritualism was heavily shaped and popularized by several pre-existing philosophies. This included, and I'm going to totally butcher that. I can't say this without people who are listening in Germany. I am sorry.
Oh, dear.
Franz, I'm tired. Franz Anton Mesmers. We're going to leave it at that. 18th century, quote unquote, this is going to sound so weird, Jamie, animal magnetism. You want me to say that again?
Yeah.
So he believed in animal magnetism, which later was called mesmerism.
Okay.
This suggested that universal magnetic fluids could be manipulated during hypnotic trances to trigger visions of spirits. Basically, he believed that you could use magnetic frequencies to make you trip balls.
So is this the start of EMF or something?
That's exactly what I was thinking when I heard it. Like, is this the beginning of what we believe can sometimes happen with high EMF? EMF, guys, for those of you who don't know and are new to this, EMF is electromagnetic frequencies. Basically, any electronic device puts out some small amount of EMF. And if you are in a supercharged space with a lot of EMF, it is generally thought and believed that can cause certain reactions in your brain. So, because your brain is an basically an electrical signal box, so it can kind of go haywire, and you can start having hallucinations and stuff like that. So,
and I mean, you mentioned something about the mediumship and that, and these two sisters going into that. There's also something with that as well, and EMF, that some people can be more sensitive to it and pick up on it, and so it's going to affect them differently or have more of an impact.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true as well. Despite our beliefs on what we're kind of talking about with the Fox sisters, because there's more stuff that comes about. I want to make sure that I'm putting out there, we're not saying that mediums don't exist, by the way. So even though the Fox sisters later came out and they were like, well, we'll go into it, but like people who are legitimate and have like actual sensitivities very well could simply be that. It's like their antenna is just more equipped, you know, to attract that. So anyway, where was I going with this? Right. So basically this is like the beginnings of what we understand as EMF theory. So visions of spirits, and Emanuel Swedenborg's, these names are wonderful.
They're great.
Mystical descriptions of an afterlife consisted of distinct spheres. Now this I have no understanding. I don't know if that's because we're alluding to the beginnings of orbs.
That's what I was thinking. Is he talking about seeing balls of light or orbs? Because that's what that kind of sounds like.
Yeah, and so but essentially these two kind of piggybacked off of each other. And same understanding, electromagnetic frequencies, energy. One believed that it was could reveal itself in the form of spheres, and the other one believed spheres, and one believed that it could actually manipulate your brain into seeing spirits. So I think they're kind of right in the middle, and obviously we've just changed the terminology over the years. So, but again, this is our history. So, there was also another famous person included in spiritualism, seer Andrew Jackson Davis. So he combined these concepts and was known as the, quote, John the Baptist of modern spiritualism. He welcomed the Fox sisters' rappings as the ultimate realization of his predictions of spiritual communication. Okay. So basically, he really rallied behind them and was like, this is the epitome of like today's communications with the dead, you know?
And I mean, even like investigations these days, you can still use those techniques. So I'll go to a location and we'll be hearing like these weird tapping noises or something. We'll establish communication that way. If our devices aren't working, we'll ask the spirits, "Are you good with communicating with us like this? If you want to give us what your yes response would be, please show us through your tapping or whatever, and we'll establish a yes/no communication style that way."
Yep. And I've experienced that on investigations as well. And like I said, when we talk more about credibility, having other devices and other witnesses, that kind of builds to credibility as well. So it's weird. It's like, because obviously I keep saying this, we're going to get into what happened to the Fox sisters. Well, let me get into that first, and then we'll get back to this. So, because it'll kind of make sense. Spiritualism held vast appeal because it allowed people to reject the gloomy Calvinistic doctrine that was from Calvinism of predestination. It allowed them to embrace reform-minded optimism, and it was kind of progressive for its era, for its day. This allowed them to feel active in their own salvation by directly communing with deceased loved ones. It was highly inclusive. It lacked the class and gender restrictions of other movements. Think about it. This was the 1800s, at a time when men were the dominant in everything. And spiritualism, as you'll learn later, was really, it was led by the ladies, But anyway, the Fox sisters embarked on lucrative, and this is where things kind of turn, lucrative professional tours, even hosting elite New York figures such as Horace Greeley, James Fenimore Cooper, and William Lloyd Garrison. I'm going to be honest with you, every source that I read kept repeating that, so I'm assuming these guys are important. I have no clue who these people are. But apparently they were very popular in New York at the time. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, like, hosting elite New York figures, it could be such as Elon Musk and what's the one guy with Facebook? I forget his name.
Oh, Mark Zuckerberg.
And the Amazon guy. Basically,
Jeff
big, powerful
Bezos.
people. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and this was all done at the Barnum's Hotel, and they made $1 per admission. So, they were making money off of this. However, the sisters' personal lives were, well, a disaster, to put it bluntly. Maggie Fox was courted by an explorer, Elijah Kent Kane, who encouraged her to abandon her spiritualism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So following his untimely death in 1857, she converted to Catholicism, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
That is quite a transition, though.
Yeah, she converted to Catholicism, and she struggled with severe alcoholism, and she withdrew from mediumship, later renouncing it. Kate Fox married a devout spiritualist and continued her work, demonstrating remarkable feats like transcribing messages in reverse and channeling the spirits of figures like Benjamin Franklin. So, giving the benefit of the doubt, it's understandable that the Fox sisters went from just doing rappings when they were kids to having more abilities.
Sounds like these are like seance style.
Seance style, yeah. That was very popular back then. Anybody is familiar with what a seance kind of looks like, but anyway, oddly enough, she too struggled. So Kate also struggled with drinking. So both of them were heavy alcoholics. The American Civil War brought a massive boom to the movement as grieving families, well, they sought comfort. I mean, they had loved ones that were missing in action and killed and never to be seen from again, and it was the bloodiest war in American history. There were an estimated 8 million spiritualists in the United States and Europe at the time.
Wow.
So it went from just 2 girls to 8 million people.
Hey, weren't you mentioning something about fabricating this stuff? I mean, how do you have 8 million so quickly?
Yeah. So I think it speaks to I'm sure you have found that when you're on an investigation, sometimes you have to remind yourself to be like, okay, not everything is a ghost. Not everything is a spirit. And I think this played into our natural curiosities as humans. Like before 1848, I firmly believe that there was hauntings and there was paranormal activity and whatnot in all forms. Now we're mostly talking about spirits here, but all sorts of different things, like people having psychic abilities and things like that. Even though I don't constantly run into that in my field, I'm mostly a spirits, demons type thing. I think it's always been something that everybody has had a wonder into, has always wondered what it was about.
I mean, isn't it natural to kind of wonder what's after this life? Because we don't really know. And it's human nature to kind of ponder that a bit and be curious of that, because it's almost like if you know a little bit of something, it almost feels a little bit better once you finally reach that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it gives you kind of a peace. And, I'm a Christian and it doesn't interfere with my faith even, it's, if anything, for me, it's reaffirmed it, but for others, I think it also, it can kind of bring comfort too. But I am, of course, speaking highly from somebody who already believes. And that's okay. You could still be skeptical. There are some investigators out there who are skeptics foremost and firstly, and that's cool too.
Honestly, I love investigating with skeptics, because if you come across some evidence that just really stumps them, that's like the best moment ever.
That really stumps them. And then I've had, skeptics who have encountered things and they're like, wow, this is legit. Like there is something here, now they might not be able to put their finger on it. But that's a whole part of it. We all start there. But going back to, even though there's a little bit of fraud going on here, I do believe that fundamentally there was real phenomenon going on, because for centuries humans have encountered this stuff. That's the reason why, it was not something that was not believable, if that makes sense. So, like I said, we move on and we develop better ways to kind of weed that out. But in October of 1888, motivated simply by rage at her sister Leah for criticizing Kate's drinking and parenting, Maggie signed a $1,500 exclusive with the New York World Press to expose the movement. So this is where she comes out and publicly denounces spiritualism, and she removes her shoe to demonstrate how they made the sound when they were kids. So she cracks her toe and it makes the sound. So imagine hearing this popping noise and you can't see it because it's in a shoe. And that's how they did it.
Wow.
According to Maggie. So Maggie claimed Leah had known of the deception all along and that she really was not a medium, and greedily exploited them as kids. Maggie recanted her confession a year later. So she came back and said, actually, wait a minute, what I just said didn't. We really are mediums. It really is real. All this stuff really did happen. So she did come back and say, I was just angry. But she claimed at the time that her spirit guides ordered her to do so, to basically say that it was all fake. But the damage to the movement's reputation by that point had already been done. So their reputation as investigators, that credibility that I'm talking about,
They lost it.
they lost it. And that's the most important thing as far as paranormal investigating. Like, let's say she really did just, like, all this really did happen to them. All their credibility is lost in that moment. So it's not, with other team members, with other people in the para community, I mean, your credibility is very, very, very important.
I mean, not to name any team's name or anything, but I've heard about this televised paranormal show that they were just one of the most respected and favored shows. And years later, their lead investigator just makes a comment like, yeah, we fake this stuff sometimes. And the credibility overnight just disappeared.
Yep. And goes out the window. And I'll get into that too, like in later part of this episode, the pros and cons of how, shows and YouTube channels and things like that have allowed us to embrace investigating the paranormal. But on that flip side, it's also allowed for some.
I mean, as the filmmaker in me, I understand you're creating it for entertainment purposes. So the goal is to fabricate it. What can you create for camera to really shock your viewers? But there's a line with wanting to keep it real for paranormal and wanting to make it good for TV that can be easily crossed.
Yeah, exactly. And that I can't talk tonight. Sensationalism. There we go. See, I can use words.
Yeah, that would be it.
Like I said, guys, this is going to be very informal, so we're going to roll right along with it.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so going back to this, the movement's reputation, of course, kind of fell apart at that point. But that didn't mean it went away. Okay, so there was notable believers that had some credibility in the early spiritual movement, and that included the Lincolns. So Mary Todd Lincoln was absolutely devastated by the death of her son Willie in 1862. He had died in the White House, I believe, if I remember correctly. The First Lady hosted frequent seances in the Red Room of the White House. For her, the movement was a deeply personal coping mechanism for grief, and you can explore her relationship to the movement to this day at the Mary Todd Lincoln House resources and on all their available archives. So, Abraham Lincoln, obviously, what the wife does, the husband must do. He was not an avid spiritualist, so he wasn't out just claiming ghosts and ghosts and ghosts and ghosts. But he did have quite a few run-ins with supernatural activity, I guess you could say. Some even say that based off of his journal writings, he had a premonition about his own death.
Wow.
He had seen a reflected image in a mirror of himself, and he had a wound in the side of his head, and he wrote about it. So he even told Mary about it, and she consulted a medium. But
So I'm curious because she was doing seances in the White House. The White House is known to have paranormal activity. It's a haunted location. Could they have opened some doors there and not closed them?
I think so. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of the White House will definitely be something we're going to cover in one of our main case episodes. But to keep it very brief, Abraham Lincoln is actually one of the apparitions that is most seen there. Mary Todd Lincoln is also seen.
Wow.
I believe, if I remember correctly, Eleanor Roosevelt can be seen as well. So frequent visitors, I guess you could say.
Then there's also the element of Abraham Lincoln also having some weird paranormal activity around him. I mean, and him not really being that much of a spiritualist, but once you start to consider it and start paying even a tiny bit of attention, it amplifies it. It's almost like waving a red flag saying, "Hey, I'm paying attention to you. Why don't you do more?"
Yep. He did consult with popular spiritualists at the time who would also lead some of these seances, like Charles Colchester. There is a caveat to him. So Colchester was drinking buddies with John Wilkes Booth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that he was a fraudster or anything like that, but it is interesting that,
Yeah.
John Wilkes Booth, remember, he was an actor. He was big in the area. I mean, people knew who he was. So, it was him, and I think his brother was more popular, but they were both actors. So, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm totally pulling that out of thin air, but if I remember correctly, that's what it was. But Colchester also affirmed Lincoln's beliefs about a future assassination. And I believe it was a couple days beforehand, he had a dream where he wakes up, he walks down into the parlor room of the White House. This is Lincoln's dream. And he sees all the men, the soldiers and stuff, the high generals are surrounding a casket basically in the middle of the room. And he's like, who died? And they said the president. And that was kind of like a haunting reminder to him. So it's almost like he knew what was coming.
Wow.
So I'm excited to, it's not on my list for the rest of this year, but I know it'll be covered sometime next year. I want to do the White House. Mostly because I'd actually like to maybe make a journey.
That would be cool.
Out to Washington and, be able to say, hey, look, this is the place. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so we talked a little bit about Colchester. He had claimed to have the ability to read hidden messages. And he interpreted those messages again as on a possible assassination with John Wilkes Booth.
So that almost sounds like some sort of psychic mediumship abilities there, potentially.
There's also something kind of interesting. This is and I'm going to mess it up because I didn't have it written down. But not long before his death, one of his sons, was on a station platform in Washington, and he tripped, and he was saved by the older Booth, the older brother.
Oh, wow.
The brother of John Wilkes Booth. So it's kind of weird because you have a Booth that saves a Lincoln and another Booth that kills one. Kind of interesting tie-in. Again, we're definitely going to cover that in one of those episodes. Like I said, guys, this is like very informal, so we're just rolling right along on it, and this is literally take one. So, Sarah Winchester, absolutely famous.
Oh yeah,
famous. She was
the iconic Winchester house, right?
Mm-hmm. So I've been there. It's an amazing house. It's absolutely gorgeous. Completely crazy.
Oh, wow.
Like doorways that go to nowhere. But it's weird though, if you think about it though, she wasn't nuts because she did certain things that made sense. But again, we are going to cover that in another episode.
There was a whole reason behind the entire build, that just the whole story behind it is so.
So she was a big spiritualist, and she was the heir to the Winchester repeating arms fortune. So the Winchester rifle was basically the rifle that won the West. Okay. When you think of a cowboy gun, a cowboy rifle, that's what you're thinking of. It's got that lever action and pow, 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 and it's just constantly, and it killed a lot of people. Like it was involved in basically every conflict, since it was created in the 1880s, I believe, or late 1870s. So she believed, a medium convinced her that she was being haunted by all the spirits of those who were killed by the Winchester rifles. Okay. And she also believed that it was those spirits that killed her husband.
Wow.
So to appease the spirits, she engaged in continuous chaotic construction on her San Jose home, which is now the famous Winchester Mystery House, which you can visit, to confuse and house the ghosts. We will definitely be covering this, like I said. Other notable ones, just to move along, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the famous author of the Sherlock Holmes series, and even the UK's Queen Victoria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, were practicing spiritualists. So these were people who, they weren't in it to fake things. They were in it to explore. Just like most paranormal investigators. So, although poor Sarah was definitely terrified.
I mean, to think that so many spirits were just almost like hunting you down, holding you responsible for that. That's got to be terrifying, going through every day like that. But then also there's the question of how much of what that medium said is actually true.
Yeah. That leads me into my next question for you is, what are your thoughts on the early fraud type stuff that was occurring? I think we were able to recover from it, to be honest with you, as a paranormal
I mean, I
community.
think we're getting there. I think we haven't completely recovered from it, but we've definitely made significant progress. There's still some communities out there that don't agree or don't have the forgiveness of believing in this stuff as other communities do. I think now there's more of an attempt to not fake it or fabricate it. And if there is, at least providing some sort of disclaimer or something like this is for entertainment purposes or whatever, kind of creating that understanding.
Yeah. And also giving people just like on the show here, the ability to tell their stories and not be judged.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff, I mentioned it in the listener files. A lot of stuff just never gets told. It happens and it occurs, and people have these experiences, and no one talks about it. So
But the level of fear of talking about it, though, and to have someone else that you're sharing that really difficult story with, to then turn it around and be like, well, that's crazy, or you're crazy for that. I mean, it's easy to not talk about it.
Yeah. I will say, though, I do think that we have recovered there.
Yeah.
Because you could easily see that if it was all just fraudsters, it would have been written up full of stigmatization, if that's even a word. Again, I'm tired. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think we have recovered enough that despite even those shows you're talking about, we can still sit down with other investigators and be like, okay, let's legitimately compare data.
Yeah.
And
nowadays there's even more people interested in figuring out what the paranormal is. There's been a rise in paranormal investigators.
Yeah, exactly. So everything that we've discussed regarding like mediums and stuff, how many actual real cases of mediumship do you think there were during that time where you actually had actual mediums that were really being involved?
I don't know. I mean, with the rise of fabricating it and everything, and then it dying off with the two sisters kind of saying it was all a hoax, it couldn't have been as many, right?
Yeah. And I think maybe, like I said, I don't have a huge history dealing with mediums. But I do believe that, you yourself is an instrument. So I think that, when I was working with as a manager for a team, I always wanted to include a narrative essentially of, hey, what did you experience during this investigation? What was your thoughts? What was your feelings, so to speak? These are very medium type questions. Now, I kept that as data at the same time that we would also keep tangible data like EMF spikes and, temperature drops and things like that. Those numerical types of data are very user friendly and are really good to show skeptics, right? Because they can tangibly understand something dropped, as when this happened.
I mean, you can create a recording of that and have that file saved. You can't really create a recording of your experience and have that.
Yeah, exactly. Like as a police officer, I find myself in situations where sometimes I have to be out in the dark. Me wandering through a building doesn't really spook me as much as maybe a newer investigator who's now in the middle of the night,
Oh, yeah.
And is like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, you know what I mean?
I remember starting out with paranormal investigating. First thing I would have to do is find someone else to just tag along with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'd be too afraid to go off on my own. And now I've investigated, I'm going to throw a location out, Missouri State Penitentiary, an incredible location. The last 2 times I've investigated there have been in an entire cell block by myself, sitting in the hallway ground, talking to James's spirit for over an hour. And another group walks in and I can hear them down the hall entering the building. They can hear me talking to James, don't realize that I'm in the building. They're freaking out, calling ghosts on it. And I'm like, nope, I'm just here. And they finally find me sitting in the hall floor and they're like, who are you here with? I'm just sitting here talking to James.
That's sometimes the downside of having other investigators that are not a part of your group, not a part of the plan as far as like where you're going to, attack first, so to speak. So I'm like, but that doesn't mean that their experience isn't valid, because in that moment, they believe they're actually talking to something paranormal. So again, that leads to the credibility and being able to adjust, okay, well, am I actually encountering something or am I not? And being able to explore that. So like I said, I don't think that
in that
your
instance,
feelings aren't valid.
Getting the necessary knowledge of how do you debunk something to verify if it's really real,
and is it just in the terms of emotions and that mediumship, I guess you could say, that sensitivity. How much of it is me being sensitive to what's going on versus is it just my nerves because I'm in a prison, you know what I mean?
I mean, we are living, breathing people, and once we pass away, the spirit is energy. And so we have our own sort of energy about us. And so are we picking up on our own energy? Is our excitement, our panic, our fear, whatever emotion we're experiencing, is that fueling that energy? Is that amplifying whatever we're picking up on during an investigation? Is that a false alarm, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Overall, I do believe that there is definitely some truth to all the madness, personally, and I'm not the only one, clearly, because even back then, even after all of the fraud was brought into the light, people were still encountering legitimate paranormal activity. This stuff didn't just stop. This is the same as it's always been, like I said. I mean, even before 1848, you had it back in the medieval times. It's just that the spiritual movement was not only brought into our culture, but now it had a shift. It had a complete shift. So how do we go about, going back to that credibility, how do we go about separating fact and simple ghost stories? In an online article from the UK Science and Media Museum, this was titled "Using Science to Investigate the Paranormal." It was published in February of 2022. It states, In the years after 1900, several psychical laboratories were purpose-built in Britain, Europe, and the US by serious practitioners, aiming to establish the rigorous, controlled conditions for scientifically investigating the supernatural. As you know, saying the word scientifically is kind of interesting, but anyway, we'll keep going because it is a pseudoscience according to the community. But psychical, which this is before parapsychology, by the way. This was the term before that. According to the article, investigator Harry Price established the London National Laboratory of Psychical Research, that's NLPR, in 1926. Price defined psychical research as the attempt to ascertain by experimental methods how far the alleged phenomena of the seance room can be brought into line with normality and how we measure things. Could science explain the strange phenomenon spiritualists and occultists claimed were stemming from an unseen world? To conduct these exact experiments, Price's laboratory was equipped with range of technologies from cameras to dictaphones, that's basically an early form of voice recording, and barographs, instruments for registering changes in atmospheric pressure. These were used to measure conditions in the overall, what they called a seance room, and document what was occurring and study the medium's body and associated phenomenon. In this term, when they're talking about medium, they're talking about the person that's just in the experiment. So it's not necessarily what we would think of as a medium.
Next time on Crypt Walkers.
The Missouri State Penitentiary officially closed on September 15th, 2004. On that day, over 1,300 inmates were transferred to the newly constructed Jefferson City Correctional Center. Prior to its closure, the 168-year-old facility was the oldest continually operating prison west of the Mississippi. It wasn't long after the steel doors slammed shut for the final time that the prison's reputation as the bloodiest 47 acres in America transformed from a historical fact into a haunting reality. A fortress defined by a volatile, negative human energy during its century in operation has now become a laboratory for high-intensity paranormal activity today. In our next file, join me as we cross the threshold to explore the residual echoes and the haunted clues left behind in the dark corridors of this castle-like prison. Case 14, the Missouri State Penitentiary, airs Wednesday, July 1st, wherever you get your podcasts.
Price designed several special apparatuses for physical testing. Now, psychical testing. It's such a weird word. I'm happy that we switched to parapsychology. Anyway, but simple instruments like thermometers were often most useful tools for collecting evidence. And in Price's 1923 testing of the medium called Stella C, the room's temperature was carefully monitored. And my older brother Alex is really going to love this because it's all in Celsius. But it registered significant drops in temperature during performances, such as from 15.5 degrees Celsius to 9.4 degrees Celsius. This was literally all in one take, one sitting.
Oh, wow.
So with no changes to the atmosphere at all, they're trying to make contact with the spirit, and suddenly the temperature drops in a recorded environment.
They've got a cold spot.
A documented cold spot. So it's one thing to be in, like, say, this house right now and have a cold spot. Okay, well, that could be coming from a draft. This isn't really a controlled environment. A skeptic could easily say, it could be that. But this was a room that was specifically designed to not have any drafts. There should be no reason for those cold temperature changes. If anything, it should be getting hotter because you got a bunch of bodies sitting in there doing this experiment. Anyway, going back to the article. Flash photography was also important for visually capturing hard-to-see phenomenon in the dim, red-lit seance room. Notice how I said red-lit. That's a common thing. That's making a comeback. Instead of running around with night vision cameras, we're running around with red light.
That's interesting.
Yeah. In my patrol car, I prefer to have my red light on at night, anytime I'm doing anything inside the car, because it allows me to keep my night vision. So I can still see outside around me. Well, that, if you imagine, you could essentially have a red light, like walking around the prison, for example, in pitch darkness. You would be able to preserve your night vision and be able to see what's going on around you, making you more perceptible to what's going on.
That's interesting. See, I haven't gotten into using red lighting during investigations yet, but that might be something to explore and look into.
Yeah. And, obviously, I mean, come on. We all like running around in pitch darkness and night vision cameras. But I'm not opposed to sitting down, and when you're actually sitting down with doing a spirit box session or an Estes method session, and you're in one single location, turning on that red light. That way you can see the shadows, if that makes sense, if there's anything in your peripheral. But so that's the end of the article. We still utilize, like I said, this method of recording data, including EVPs. Again, I mentioned that dictaphone. That was the first, essentially, EVP recording device. In recording EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon is what we call it, EVP for short. That's essentially unintelligible or spirit voices that are captured on electronic recording media that were otherwise not audible to the human ear at the time of recording. Okay, so we could easily get an EVP right now while we're talking on this, and we wouldn't know it until we reviewed it. I realize I just bumped my mic, so that's not an EVP, guys.
We could. I want to know in editing if you do come across anything. That would be.
I have captured EVPs when I was not expecting it before. Yeah. But shout out to the Sally House. But for price, this, like I said, was done on a dictaphone, and for us today, it could be a simple cell phone or a handheld voice recorder. I prefer using voice recorders. We're going to talk more about it in future episodes of Into the Crypt, about my thoughts on apps and things. I don't have a lot of history with them. I don't know if I trust them, because a phone can do so much. Yeah. I almost feel like, you need to have something that is very analog and to the basic. What it is a digital voice recorder, which means it's only meant to record things. You're not meant to watch Netflix on it. You know what I mean? So, anyway. So temperature, like I said, that's also something that we use. Price was meticulous about measuring the drops in room temperature. And this was drawing a correlation to the drop in temperature with phenomenon. Okay. Today, we use equipment like that. We use meters that record temperature and EMF fluctuations.
Thermal imagers.
We use thermal imaging. FLIR cameras to where we can actually see it, the temperature changes. And that's where you can get really cool captures, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, imagine if you had that back then. So we have come to understand that this connection exists when a place is active, but we have yet to really understand why. And that's the reason why we're still investigating. Okay. Nothing's solved. Okay. The answer isn't, it's not predictable either. Hence the reason why it's a pseudoscience. And I am not here to argue with the scientific community, because I understand they have a specific parameters for what is a scientific method and what falls under that scientific method. And unfortunately, what we do is very observational, right? So I'm okay embracing pseudoscience, by the way. So Anyway, Price, he was also just like us. He too was skeptical. Okay. This is, like I said, I believe is a very important trait for any paranormal investigator. All right. Not everything, like I said, is a ghost or spirit. And as investigators, I think it is easy to forget that in the moment, especially when there's a thrill involved. I mean, let's be honest.
There really is.
We're exploring some cool places. We're with friends. It's an adventure. There's spooky, of course. So, of course, there's a thrill involved. It is important to try and debunk or disprove paranormal phenomenon first.
It's almost like a situation of ask questions first and believe it later.
Exactly. Because it's whenever you try your best to debunk something and then you can't. There's no rational explanation for it. So therefore, the only answer that remains, however improbable,
is unexplained, which likely means probably could be paranormal.
Exactly. Recently, we had Hometown Ghost Stories on the show. They helped. We walked through the Houghton Mansion, and we talked about one of the coolest things that they ever captured. And one of their investigators, Dave, who was actually on the show, he's a skeptic. He has a skeptical mindset. He definitely did back then. And he experienced right there in front of him a door slamming shut on cue. And it wasn't just a door, it was a French door, so you could see through it. They knew it wasn't being faked. They knew there was no reason for it to move. And they tried to debunk it. They tried to explain why it moved that way. A rational explanation was, well, it's on one of those like springs that makes it move back and forth.
You can see through it.
But you could see through it. And the spring was so worn out, it stayed in the same position the whole time while they were talking. It only moved when they asked for it to move. Now, granted, he also said, hey, there was times where it didn't move. Right? So it goes back to that.
But there's a whole 30 seconds beforehand where it's just staying right there.
Exactly. But it does go back to that predictability, though. Like, that's the reason why, we can't replicate every single thing that we observe. But I think they did a really good job of, taking something that was clearly reactive. I mean, when they witnessed it, I mean, that'll definitely get your blood pumping. It's a thrill. But then they took a second and went, okay, wait. Could this have done this? Could this have done that? And they came to the conclusion that there was no reason for it to close because it had been remaining open for plenty of time. Like, it was perfectly fine. It had to have been acted upon in order to move. So, if you guys are curious more about that, you can listen to part 2 of the Houghton Mansion case, which you covered a case before the last one.
Really great episode. I think you all should check it out.
Yeah. So, it was really great having Dave on. So, like I said, guys, I can't stress this enough. Allow room for skepticism. It's only going to build your incredibility. Did you just? I said incredibility. Well, you guys are all incredible, by the way. I think we're all incredible, but your credibility is what's
our fans are incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're working on building credibility here.
Yeah, if you have made it this far,
thank you.
Thank you. You guys are all incredible. But yes, your credibility in the paranormal field is important, and that's why for this topic, for Into the Crypt, it's all about education. It's about trying to build that paranormal community and empower people to go out and do these investigations, and to not only have fun, but to also be grounded, so people take you seriously. So I think we alluded to it before, and I'm so sleep deprived, I don't know if I got this answer from you yet. So when you share your data with other members or other paranormal investigators, do you lean into stories of the sensitivity, like, hey, we encountered a lot of this type of activity personally, or do you lean more into the more measurable phenomena, like, yeah, we there's this house is known to have a lot of EVP spikes and whatnot. How do you
Are you asking, like, am I more of a, like, do I rely on myself over tech, or?
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess that would go also to how you investigate, because that's how you would also show it to other investigators.
Yeah. I mean, I started out investigating, like, with that excitement of, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I want to get all the amazing gear. And I think everybody goes through that, where you start out with, I've got to get as much of the gear as I can to help with investigations. But you learn pretty quickly as well that you yourself are probably one of the best paranormal tools that you can ever have. Whatever you're picking up, with it being in your peripheral vision, if you have a little bit of a sensitive connection to it to where you can pick up on that stuff, trust that and believe it, because you can actually detect stuff yourself in whatever way that looks for you. So I personally like to show up with everything that I've got, and just, if I know a bit of the history of the location and know that it's known for more audio-based EVP stuff, or known for more visual, then I'll probably rely more on that gear. I'm still going to get all the other gear out just to cover all bases, but if it's already been established that, yes, this place gets a lot of EVPs, I'm going in with every single audio recorder setup that I have and just going to town with that. But I'm also kind of a bit more sensitive to this stuff, so I pick up on energy. I'm 100% of the time relying on that.
So you kind of, the way that you also investigate is kind of like a hybrid. So you let the sensitivity kind of guide you as far as a compass, but you rely on the equipment and the data.
Absolutely. So
to gather the quote unquote evidence.
yes.
Okay.
And I have been known, and I should stop doing this because it's actually terrible, but I have been known to be investigating with a group of people, and I'm drawn this other direction, and I will just disappear from that group completely.
Oh.
And they will have no idea what happened to me.
And they're like missing 411. It's like, where'd she go?
So the location that I did this, that really threw this group of people a curveball, was Indiana State Sanatorium. We were in the tunnel system underground, and I was following them. All of my batteries have died, and so I was following them because they had the only working flashlight. It's 2 a.m. We are underground in a tunnel. Like, that is dark. I'm following them because they've got the flashlight. And we've approached this part of the tunnel where we've discovered bats have taken up residency. That's kind of where I draw the line, and it's like, yeah, I don't need to continue on. They wanted to keep going through the tunnel and try to pass the bats safely. I decided, I'm noticing something back this way. I'm going to just turn around and head back that way. And I did. I wandered in the dark with no light through this tunnel, completely ditched the group. And we were in that tunnel system that is near the nurses station.
Mm-hmm.
I had actually left that area, made it all the way to the other building, which is the 5-story hospital section, was on the 5th floor investigating, and had actually started making my way back to the lunchroom to gather more gear whenever I met back up with this group. This is like 2 hours later, and they're like, what the heck happened to you?
Where'd you go? Oh my goodness.
Just completely disappeared.
I have to ask, what time of year was this?
April-ish, but I'm just
That's
guessing
early
at that point.
It's early enough because we had Mariah of Crossroad X on the show. Again, I'm alluding to past shows. I'm just happy that I have the ability to do that. That means I've had guests. But no, Mariah was on, and she was on the episode for the Indiana State, and she told me what also is in those tunnels. And the lady just giving the tour circled the map and just put snakes.
Oh, please don't go there.
Yeah. So nope.
Oh no.
Nope on a rope.
No. I mean, there are two real life things that genuinely terrify me: spiders, with good reason, and for some unknown reason, snakes. And I have. All right, this is not paranormal related, but the story. I went mushroom hunting with family one time in woods, and what took us 30 minutes of hiking into the woods took me 0.2 seconds to get out. And that's because I'm following family in the woods. We're mushroom hunting. I see them jump about 4 feet in the air. And I'm like, are you good? And all they had to say was, I heard a hiss, and I was already out of the woods. I ditched them there in the woods because I knew exactly where they were going with that. And I'm like, nope, no snakes here. Got out of the woods.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I cannot explain that phobia, where it came from, but yeah.
I think it's a built-in mechanism.
It's gotta be.
I mean, I watch some videos on YouTube where guys are just playing with king cobras, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you?
No.
Oh, he's just a cute guy. His name is Kevin. No, his name is not Kevin. He is a killing machine.
At this point,
he can kill you with one bite.
Throw any paranormal thing my way, I will deal with that over a snake.
Yep. Bring on the spirits. But yeah, Kevin can stay in the box. Well, anyway, to get back on topic, so we had a resurgence in the 1970s, and I think that in many ways it has continued even to today, in different waves, I guess you could say, different vibes, but for the most part, it's been the same. By the mid to early 1970s, paranormal research exploded out of a quiet college campuses and laboratories and small controlled spaces and slammed directly into pop culture. Love them or hate them, okay? You know who I'm about to mention next.
Are we going with the Warrens on this?
Yeah, we have got to acknowledge the infamous works of the Warrens. So, Ed and Lorraine Warren were arguably the most famous and controversial paranormal investigators of the 20th century. They had catapulting cases that were like, they had cases that catapulted them into the public zeitgeist. Okay, with Amityville Horror, the Enfield Poltergeist, the Conjuring House, what we now know as the Conjuring House. Basically, they made Annabelle. Yep, they made global headlines. They operated from the 1950s onward. Ed was a self-proclaimed demonologist, and Lorraine was a professed clairvoyant and medium. Now, to Ed's credit, he was one of the only people authorized to commit. No, that's the cop coming out of me, by the way. He was authorized to practice exorcisms outside of the Catholic Church. All right, so he was the only one so far that I know of that has been documented by the Catholic Church. That's pretty
incredible, though.
That is. I mean, that you have to prove something.
Because from my understanding, going into practicing exorcisms and helping people out with that takes years of religious study.
Not to mention, it's very rare for the Catholic Church to approve an exorcism. We'll cover, again, in future cases, some very famous cases of that.
I think we all know one right off the top of our heads, and it's kind of local to where we're recording this podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, local to the Midwest.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll definitely be covering that.
Yeah.
I actually know some police officers that are involved with that. Anyway, yeah, I got to figure out how to make that work, but yeah, we'll get there. So Lorraine was a professed clairvoyant and medium, and for the most part, most people believed that she was credible. She had beliefs that some people didn't agree with, but for the most part, they believed that she was legitimate. And she shifted, of course, the cultural focus of ghost hunting towards the dark spiritual battlefield that's supposed to be on the other side. So it's not just talking to dead relatives here. It's dealing with other darker entities. On the positive side, their legacy, undeniable. Okay. All paranormal investigators, love them or hate them, you have got to acknowledge the fact that
you've at least heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yes. Even if they've said weird stuff, you're like, I put more faith in the Warrens than I did the Fox sisters. Okay. So, anyway, they completely modernized the public's fascination with the paranormal. They built a massive archival footprint with their occult museum and laid the direct pop culture groundwork for the entire modern ghost hunting phenomenon. Okay, so, however, they kind of had a con. All right, so they're not that they were cons. I'm saying there was a pro and con here. The con of their legacy lies in their fiercely sensationalized, slightly profit-driven approach. Okay, they sold a lot of books.
They've got the whole Conjuring movie franchise.
Exactly. So, yeah, they were deeply criticized by objective scientists and skeptics for a total lack of scientific rigor. All right, they were frequently relying on their religious dogmatism. So, I don't necessarily. I mean, I'm a Christian, so obviously I'm biased, right? So I do believe in demons, and I believe in angels, and I believe in spirits and things. But if you're not religious, I mean, I don't know, you might come at it from a different angle. So, so I can kind of understand that. The take that they had unverified claims. Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have seen video footage where I have seen investigators who I trust very well. You know, I believe in what they do, using dowsing rods. And anybody could sit there and go, oh, well, that's unverified. You could easily fake that. Well, not really. I mean, you have to know how to do that.
But what if you've got, say, 5 or 6 people together, each with their own dowsing rods, and all of them are responding in the same way? I mean, how do you say that's not reliable?
And the other thing too is, like, all you have to do is, as long as, and this is for paranormal investigating purposes, guys, if you are using dowsing rods, and we will cover a Into the Crypt episode specifically on dowsing rods and their legitimacy. If you are using dowsing rods, you need to make sure that you have your hands in frame and that you keep them very still. Dowsing rods, for those of you who don't know it, they're copper metal, heavy gauge wire.
They're
essentially.
L-shaped sticks almost.
Sticks, yeah, and they sit free flowing in a copper pipe that you're holding with your hands. Now, if you were holding it correctly, you could move your hand side to side, and the wires will stay pointing straight out. Okay, it's believed, because of the magnetism between the wires and the EMF changes that spirits produce, that they can answer yes or no questions by moving them back and forth or crossing them, whatever instructions that you give, essentially. But the way that you can tell if they're faking or not is to watch their fingers. If their thumbs are to the side, that means they're only gripping the pipe. So you can move it side to side and it isn't going to do anything. But if you see their thumbs sitting on top of it, then yes, you can then kind of move your
There's a
thumbs
little
like
bit
a
of
joystick.
manipulation there that can be done. And it's,
Exactly. And it's the reason why I highly suggest if you're ever recording dowsing rods, you can have a wide angle shot, but get that close up shot too. Going back to the videography part of it. So, but anyway, back to the Warrens. So it should be noted, I would definitely be covering the Warrens as well as some of their cases in future episodes of the main podcast. The Warren era traded the clinical objective approach of the past for high stakes, high drama cases that were centered around purely either demonic hauntings, powerful spiritual activity, exorcisms, and or direct confrontations with the unknown. So sometimes they dealt with things that were beyond this spiritual.
I mean, but it kind of makes sense because they did specialize in demonology.
Yes. So it'd be natural to think that maybe they were moving in that direction. Because you got to understand, we're also human, you know. So I'm not faulting them for that. But then came the mid 2000s. And I'm saying this right now. I think this is not a bad thing. I think we could have made 4 steps forward, but we kind of only made 2 steps forward because we had to take 2 steps back too. So anyway, reality television completely rewrote everything. So shows like Ghost Hunters, which I honestly think did a pretty good job for the most part. You know, I think Ghost Hunters did a better job of not being sensationalizing. I can't get that word. I feel like I've said it 3 different ways. Whatever. I need to go home and go to bed. But then came the mid 2000s. Blah 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 blah. Ghost Hunters. They came onto the scene. They introduced what we now kind of see as the standard blueprint of using technology and observational methods and using camera equipment. So everyday people could now afford consumer electronics that they could use to go hunt the paranormal. So suddenly anyone with $100 could buy an EMF meter, a digital recorder, and an infrared camera online. Now, I don't know what Ryder was thinking back then when he wrote this, as in me, when I wrote this, but nothing is for $100 anymore.
I was going to say, are you sure about that? Because some of the gear that I've invested in, definitely $100 would have been like, oh, that would be amazing. Yeah.
I don't think anything's $100.
I mean, I
think maybe I was smoking crack.
I've taken out extra student loans to pay for some of this gear, and I believe I'm still paying it off today. Yeah. Worth every penny, but the still paying it off bit.
The cost of gear is going to be the main reason why in the future, when we do investigations and I want the public involved and I want to have our listeners come with us.
That would be amazing.
We're going to have like, guys, you're going to have to buy us a coffee or something. Yeah. You know, we're going to have some fundraiser.
I mean, the SLS camera that I invested in, hands down, one of the most expensive pieces. I think I spent like over $600 on it. Yeah. It was crazy. I'm sure now it's probably a little bit cheaper. Hopefully. I don't know.
Okay, this is nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
We have to move on.
No, we definitely do. We can go down on a tangent on that and just get lost there. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely the type of
although I do believe the K2 meters, you can find those for under $100.
You could find those under $100. And guys, again, Into the Crypt is all about education and how to investigate better. Look at stuff online too. Look at stuff at like eBay and things like that. Because sometimes you can find older Mel meters.
They still work.
They work very well.
Are great tools for investigating.
And sometimes you don't need the best and the greatest. Like in my opinion, the SB7 is SB7.
Yeah.
SB7 Spirit Box. I can't talk tonight. SB7 Spirit Box is far better than the 11 in my mind, in my opinion. It's easier to understand. It's easier to manipulate. Well, for the good. I mean, it's easier to utilize.
I've noticed because I have both of those. The SB7 works fantastic. I've had so much luck with it, especially Missouri State Pen. I have like 10 minutes of walking the cell block with this device running. And as I pass a cell door, hey, I'm here. How you doing? Stop. Wait. That was incredible. But the SB11, what I've noticed with mine, spirits like to turn it off completely. Not drain the battery, just nope, turn it off.
I've had the exact opposite. My 11 turns on.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I have literally been sitting doing a completely different way of, I've had it to where we've done Estes session, an Estes method with the 7 going as the device. And then the person will say, I'm turn it on, because they hear turn it on, come through the device. And lo and behold, the 11 turns on. And it was in the backpack that was sitting over in the corner.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was, gave me creeps. But I'm literally getting creeps just thinking about that. But that right there is really tangible. Again, guys, we will cover in other episodes of Into the Crypt. I can't wait to just dive into the Estes method.
Oh, yes.
Because I think that is probably one of the best advancements in
better ways of investigating. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Yep, and I think it builds more credibility. But anyway, so today we stand on a highly digital, decentralized frontier. So independent creators, podcasters, live streamers are bypassing all the networks to broadcast raw investigations to millions of viewers and listeners just like you guys. As modern researchers, we find ourselves sitting at an interesting crossroads. This is kind of like how I said we took 2 steps forward and in a way 2 steps back. Because now we're tasked with a different challenge. Okay. How do we balance the purely observational exploration and no set standard of predictability with the investigations that can be shared and analyzed in an objective way? When you have, and I'm not knocking them at all, by the way, actually my respect for them has grown more over the years. I used to think that they were just a bunch of idiot kids in the beginning, but I actually think they've kind of gotten serious with it. Sam and Colby. Okay. Very popular paranormal investigators. Okay. I think they have matured in their ways of investigating that I could see working with them on an actual basis of purely, can we do an experiment type thing?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not just running around with cameras so much. They have to have that to keep entertainment. You know what I mean? But I could see it being okay. We can at least have some sort of medium here, a middle ground. That is one of the issues, though, is that because there is no stigmatism, you're going to have people that are putting out content that are just putting out garbage. And it's either helping or it's not helping.
Well,
it kind of depends.
And there is that element with the rise of social media and having smartphones that make it so easy to record. It's so easy to fabricate now. So it's determining what is actually real and what's not.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, a lot of visual stuff is hard to prove anymore because you could have AI. That's why I personally think we need to start. Scary. We need to revert, and we need to go back to using flash photography on film cameras, not digital cameras. Film cameras. I think we need to slowly revert back. I think one of the coolest tools in the arsenal to have is a Polaroid camera.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
I'm glad you said that.
Amount of stuff that you can capture on a Polaroid. Or old school digital camera.
Yeah.
Now granted, I use a Canon T7i. This is because of policing. I tend to treat every investigation I go on like a crime scene. So when I set up and if I have access, not all locations will let me just do this, but if I have the time, I will go around and I'll do a walkthrough and I will take photos in a series just like we do with the crime scene.
Oh, wow.
So I'll have an establishing shot on the outside. And it's almost like when you review the photos, it's almost like you're just going to walk. Like you can literally just follow where I'm going. You go into a room, you take a picture from each corner facing inward.
Okay.
So now you have a whole idea of what the inside of the room looks like. This is what we use in crime scene processing. Okay. Now, the only thing I don't do is I don't do close-ups on certain objects because obviously this isn't a crime scene. But it allows me to be like, okay, when I'm reviewing evidence 3 weeks from now, and I want to remember, okay, what was it like in that room? You know, what was the environment like? You know, was a window open? Was it not open?
I mean, because spirits will move doors and that, and so you can go back if you knew the door was open when you were taking the photos from the start, and then you're investigating. You're like, I thought that door was open, but now it's
or
closed.
If objects are moved. This works a lot better when you're closed. Like if we took the Velisca house and we just were only us in the Velisca house. That's it. There's no one else. It's just our team. That's golden hour. But when you're running into things like the prison, sometimes you have way too much and you have too many variables. I've investigated the prison as well. And the good news is that we didn't really have a lot of interference, but you have to be able to predict, hey, there could be interference because we've got people who are not a part of our team investigating multiple stories up or over or whatnot. Yeah. It's like the same thing with the Queen Mary, but I can go on and on. So to start to wrap it up, I believe fundamentally if teams, legit teams, were all on the same page, and I think TAPS tried to do this, and I think they still are for the most part, but it's just not as popular. If you could create a way to make us all on the same page, like, for example, with the crime scene stuff, police officers across the board are taught this is how you handle a crime scene, right?
There's a standard for it.
Not every crime scene is the same, okay? But this is how you handle and process it to make it standard, okay? If we could figure out a way to, as paranormal teams, stick on the same level, on the same page, so that way we could share our data. Imagine if you could go to the Limp Mansion and be able to access a database of credible paranormal teams who have submitted evidence that first I recommend you conduct your own investigation first and then review it. So that way you're not, predisposed or whatever they call it. But then go back and be like, oh, wow, look, there was a trend. There's activity that happened here. And this was and it was credible, all documented. It's all, how do I say it?
There's a pattern that you can see that keeps repeating.
Yeah. And you can easily say it's credible because we're all on the same page as the way that we do it. Right now, everything's different. Everything's all over the place. Hence, again, why I don't sit there and argue with somebody that says, oh, that's just a pseudoscience. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, because it is. It's okay. It's observational.
Yeah.
Everything we do essentially is observational.
And you can also take it a whole different level deeper. And because some people have an understanding of certain things with the paranormal, like if you have poltergeist activity, there can be a misunderstanding of what that actually is.
Yeah.
So some people might think of it as a negative spirit. Other people might think of it as just objects being moved by energy.
Yep. Some people think that it's psychokinesis, whatever it's
Right.
called.
Telekinesis.
Telekinesis.
And it's
One
just,
day I'm going to learn how to talk. It'll be great when I do. Oh my goodness.
the sleep deprivation continues here, folks.
And what's messed up is the voice just came out. A voice. One of the many voices of Ryder. Which means we're getting close to slap happy range.
Oh, fun. But it's also creating that universal understanding of the terminology and what is a poltergeist, what is EMF, and it just creating that universal name for each type of paranormal term so that everybody knows, oh, well, you're talking about an orb that just floated into frame. I know exactly what that is.
Exactly. Yeah. And, that's what we're trying to do here, I think. Fundamentally, I mean, this is just the first steps, but eventually I do have hopes and dreams too. That's why I really want to connect with paranormal teams that have covered these locations that we cover in our topics and whatnot, to build those relationships, to encourage para unity, and, to be able to blend it, where we have fun, but we also still are able to be like, okay, how do we further it? How do we keep this going? How do we keep this legacy going? And help finally try to answer that question. Is there life after death? Is that what we are actually experiencing here? So to close out this very first episode of Into the Crypt, I'm going to leave it up to you guys now. So you guys, the listeners, what do you think? What type of topics would you like discussed on this sub-series in the future? Like I said, this is a monthly episode that we're doing.
We want to know what you're interested in hearing about.
Exactly. So you can expect a new episode of Into the Crypt once every month on the fourth Wednesday of the month. Okay. So, like I said, this is just the beginning. I'm hoping to maybe incorporate more interactive type of stuff, because this is very non-formal, guys. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of notes that we have to read here, but this is not like our normal case episodes. So I could easily see this maybe being something where we do it live in the future.
That would be amazing. And you've now got a videographer, filmmaker to help with the production side of stuff. Exactly.
Oh, God. Yes, I need that. I need that. As you can tell, we don't have any back to the housekeeping. I am so sorry, guys. I keep saying check us out on our socials, and we're dead on our socials. And it's because
we're getting there, though.
I'm getting there. We're good. Yes.
Everything takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of time. It's a process. It'll happen.
Yes.
But please be sure to stay tuned.
Yes, absolutely. And please stick around and continue listening. Please subscribe, follow wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like, share, all the buttons, all the notifications.
Yep. Leave us a review. Send it out to everyone that you possibly know who's into the spooky, because it helps us grow in the podcast world. Guys, as long as you give a review of like at least 5 stars, you could put in the message, this is the worst podcast I've ever heard. But as long as we get those 5 stars, guys, for some reason in the algorithm, it works. So.
I mean, at this point, we're wanting the 5 stars for, can you actually play the clip at all? Like the first 2 seconds? Yes? All right, 5 stars. There you go.
You could put, he does voices or he hears voices. I don't know. It's something. But be sure to stay tuned. Be sure to join me next week on July 1st. As you heard earlier in the show, we had the trailer for the Missouri State Pen. So I'm excited. We're going to be covering that next week. Airs July 1st for the Missouri State Penitentiary. But it's also going to be a 2-parter. So that's been a new development. It's going to be a 2-parter, and I am excited to have to share with you an interview that I did with Dan and Maddie over at Haunted Souls Paranormal. Yeah, they've had a huge amount of experiences there, and Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, happy hauntings.